Welcome to Sormax Writers Cafe, where we share the real writer's life over a cup of friendship, sprinkled with laughter and wisdom. My name is LaShaunda Hoffman, and I'm your host. This episode's sponsor is Building Your Readership by LaShaunda Hoffman, a new Kindle book. Are you ready to become a book promotion social butterfly? Inside the new episode book, LaShaunda shares 10 ways to start building your readership, increase your book sales as you learn how to be consistent with your book promotion. Each episode includes action steps to implement to help you become a social butterfly. Check the show notes for the link. Sitting at the cafe today with me is Jahzara Bradley, Victoria Kennedy, and Tyreese Mcallister. Welcome, 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 ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, as we always do, we let the authors introduce themselves. So we're going to start with Miss Bradley. Please tell us who you are, what you do, what you write about, and hopefully give us an excerpt of your book.
Okay, awesome. My name is Jahzara Bradley, and Jahzara means blessed princess. I like to write romance, urban fiction, and I also like to write inspirational fiction. I self-publish under my company, Tranquil Moments. I also have a company under Tranquil Moments called Tranquil Bliss, where I make aromatherapy products because I am a clinical massage therapist as well. So I specialize in relaxation. My latest book, Love of My Life, is a love story. It's about Gia and infinity, and Gia has to learn how to make some moves in order to experience the love of her life. And is it okay if I read an excerpt from it?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I'm actually going to start on page 1 and just read a little bit from it. July 16th, 2009, a reunion of sorts. Honey Bun, what's up with you? You cooked a Sunday dinner on a Thursday? Micah Love told his mother as he chewed on a piece of fried chicken. Honey Bun was his term of endearment for her. Gia loved to eat sugary treats and had been known to substitute it for a meal on several occasions. Standing beside him as he sat at the 6-seat oak table, she replied, "Nothing." She giggled as she continued, "Boy, don't act like I don't cook." And she ran her fingers through his curly locks. He was going to be a heartthrob. She could see it already. Michael had a golden brown complexion, curly hair, and his teeth were perfect. They had better be. Gia found herself thinking about the many trips they had taken to the orthodontist and the expenses incurred. Nothing was too much for her one and only son, though. He swatted her hand away from his head. When he was younger, he enjoyed the gesture and would curl up under his mother for attention. Now that he was 12 and about to be 13 in a few months, a change had come upon Micah, as if he were saying he needed less maternal attention and more space to find out what he could achieve on his own. Gia lightly smacked his hand. "Whatever, boy, I'm still your mommy, and I can touch your hair if I want to. And don't let me find out no fast-tailed girls been running their fingers through your hair," she said with a serious tone. Continuing her conversation, she told him, "Besides, you're about to be gone for a whole week, and you know how you do when you go over your dad's house. You definitely not E.T. You won't phone home." "Huh?" Micah asked as the doorbell rang. "Never mind. It's not funny if I have to explain it to you. I bet that's your dad at the door. I will get the door. Clear your place and get your stuff. I will hurry," Micah said as he wiped his mouth, took a gulp of juice, and scraped his plate into the silver trash can that opened when you waved your hand above the lid. "Hi, Michael." Micah heard his mother greet his dad from the living room. He hurried to his room to retrieve his suitcase and rolled it down the hallway on the beige carpet. When he arrived in the living room, his dad greeted him with a high five. "Oh, I see you got the new J's. Why you asked me to buy them if you already had them?" Michael asked with disappointment. "Chill, Michael," Gia interrupted. "Lydia, his godmother, bought them for him. With school approaching here soon, you will have plenty of opportunity to contribute to his well-being." Okay, Dad, let's go, Micah said, trying to play referee between his two parents. While Micah loved his dad and mom equally, he knew his dad was no match for his mom verbally. His mother would verbally annihilate his dad and made it very uncomfortable for Micah to observe. And I'm going to just stop right there. So that is a few pages from Love of My Life.
Really interesting. I don't know what has happened. All right, Miss Victoria. Come back to you. You there? Victoria?
Oh, yeah. I didn't even hear you call my name. Oh, my goodness.
Okay.
Okay. I'm Victoria Kennedy. I write about Black love, gladly. Not always romantic, but I'll tell you a little of my bio. I'm the author of Where Love Goes. It's a collection of short stories, and one of the stories was adapted into a stage play called The Uninvited Guest. My debut novel, Sometimes Love, was published in 2017 by Brown Girls Books. I live in Baltimore with my family, and Don't Walk Away was my second novel. I'm working on the sequel now. It has a tentative title of Everything I Own, and it's the best friend story from Don't Walk Away for anyone who may have read it. I also have a writers group for Black women writers called Zora's Den, and we are about to release our second anthology, The Fire Inside. It's The Fire Inside 2, and Zora's Den is named in honor of Zora Neale Hurston, who's not only my favorite writer, but she's such an inspirational woman, trailblazer, who was so independent and outspoken for her day that I proudly walk in that relationship that suggests some kind of connection to her. But yes, that's me. Let's see. So my second book was Don't Walk Away, and if you like, I can read an excerpt from that. I was trying to find an excerpt I had online, but of course, because I'm looking for it, I can't find it. That's how it is with everything you're looking for. You can't find it. All right, so I'm going to just pick apart and start reading. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
All right, great, because the volume seems really low on the other side of this. Okay, let's see. I'll start from the beginning. Okay. Leah had almost forgotten the simple pleasure of waking up entangled in the limbs of a man. Almost. The calming patter of rain against her window helped create the right frame of mind for sensual thoughts to run free, thoughts she hadn't often entertained. Except for the faint chirping of birds signaling night's slow surrender today, everything was hushed. She savored the stillness along with every minute of fantasy because Leah knew it wouldn't last, and neither would the peace. The bird song was comforting, but it also alerted her to the crack of dawn, and she didn't have as much time to lament as she thought. Pulling back the covers, Leah placed her feet on the floor and shuffled along the scatter of overlapping rugs until she reached the bathroom and its cold tiles. Reality sank in as she tended to her needs, and panic beat fast in her chest. This was the day she'd meet the incoming CEO. Leah wondered how much he'd been told about her, how much he believed, and whether he planned to hold any of it against her. She turned the shower on full blast and climbed in right away instead of waiting for the water to heat. The hard, icy spray straightened the slump in her spirit. Afterward, she put on a jersey knit dress and a blazer. Her usual mix-and-match pieces of slinky polyester wouldn't make a good impression, not for someone hoping to prove herself. As she assessed how the dress accentuated her curves and how the cool blue brought out the golden hue of her eyes, Leah paused. Was she trying too hard to make a good impression? To make the flare of her hips less noticeable, She removed the belt cinching her waist. Next, she removed the bold link necklace and changed her golden button earrings to tiny gold studs. Satisfied she wouldn't stand out, Leah started toward the front door and stopped for a final once-over in the mirror. She paused with a sobering realization. Once again, her fate rested in the hands of a man, and she didn't like it. Even if it cost everything, she would learn to put herself first. She walked back to her room, wrapped a wide black belt around her waist, fastened the bold necklace on her neck, and replaced the tiny studs with her big, beautiful button. Smiling at her reflection, she left the house before anyone woke up, her mother, her son, or her 2-year-old niece, whom her sister had dropped off the night before. Leah slipped out into the dark, rainy morning, feeling accomplished at having left the house without answering anyone's needs but her own. On the metro, she reviewed the notes she'd be using on an international call scheduled for 8:30. When she exited the station, the sky was still heavy with rain, demonstrating how inaccurate a forecast could be. She hoped it wasn't setting the tone for her entire day. Rumor had it the incoming CEO was a real hard-ass. A few co-workers had been informed of their terminations already. If Leah was destined to join them, she hoped he would make it as painless as possible, maybe by email, so they wouldn't even have to meet. I'll do a little more. She merged with the foot traffic, pulling the brim of her large hat closer to her eyes, and bowed her head against the rain. Downtown Baltimore was coming to life as a few pedestrians trudged along Fayette Street in front of the courthouse. In a few hours, the sidewalk would be overrun with the usual mob of office staff, attorneys, and assorted courthouse personnel. Leah rounded the corner, holding her briefcase atop her head. The downpour, along with the gusty wind, rendered her hat useless. The glowing light and warm colors emanating from the coffee shop next door to her office pulled Leah from the sidewalk into an atmosphere aglow like a toasty snow lodge in the middle of a blizzard. With its big picture window framing the cozy scene of hanging lamps, green plants, and seated customers, it beckoned her with a promise of comfort, something on which she'd come to rely. I'll stop there.
Are you ready?
Don't walk away.
Oh, thank you. You ready, Ms. Tyreese?
I certainly am.
Okay, the floor is open for you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Well, I'm Tyreese Mcallister. I am a therapist, and my books are sort of therapy related. I'll start with a little backstory, how I even got started writing. In 2017, I lost my daughter to gun violence. She was 18-year-old college freshman, home on spring break. And so my last book that I wrote was actually a children's book that addresses the trauma of gun violence. Of course, as an African-American mom and a therapist, I know that a lot of young people are exposed to gun violence, unfortunately. And what happened was I went to look for a book to help explain homicide to and what was going on in our family to the younger children in the family, and could not find a book. So once I got myself together, I decided to write a book because it was something that was definitely missing and needed. I live in a Washington, D.C. area, and gun violence occurs here every day, sometimes 2 and 3 a day, sometimes more, and it was really unaddressed. And the name of this book is My Lollipop in Heaven, and it not only addresses community gun violence, but domestic violence, police shootings, not returning home from deployments, and accidental shooting and suicide. So these are things that I find that adults come into therapy and talk about that may have occurred in their teen years, but nobody ever really talked to them about it. So I thought writing a book that would kind of like give children an opportunity to talk about it would be good, would be something that was definitely needed and missing in the literature. The other book that I wrote, I co-wrote it with a grief specialist. I'm a trauma
I'm a trained trauma clinician. And so Dr. Jacqueline Maxwell and I paired together to write a caregiver guide to go with the children's book, because even though the children's book is absolutely amazing, it's beautifully illustrated, and it's written for ages like 4 to 12, it wasn't enough if a parent or a minister or a teacher was not able to figure out how to use the book. So we wrote a non-clinical guide on how they could use the book as a learning tool and an opportunity for young people to process their trauma. And the name of that book is Too Hard to Lick, Not Too Hard to Bite, kind of to go with our lollipop theme. And then the first book that I wrote, I was a part of an anthology, Soul Talk, and it, again, is tied to the loss of my daughter, and I shared my experience of losing my daughter and how God was dealing with me. So the name of that book is an anthology, and it's called Soul Talk. It's volume 3 for people who let go and let God. And I really share with people how I was able to forgive the person who killed my daughter pretty much almost immediately, because I found that people were really shocked and in awe. And even still, we're approaching 5 years, and people are still at a loss for how I was able to forgive the person who killed my daughter. And then again, because I'm a mental health therapist, I was a visionary author on another book where we have 14 authors talk about their own mental health journey, because during COVID, we know that many people were suffering in silence, and many people developed some anxiety and depression, but we as African Americans don't necessarily deal with it, mostly because of the stigma. And, we were just raised to be strong and not have problems and not be broken. So I have 14 people who share their own mental health journey and treatment, and the goal of the book is to encourage treatment and explain to people that treatment absolutely can work, and a lot of what we're dealing with as far as our mental health is concerned is very treatable. And then the last book my husband and I wrote together, and that's called Fathers Matter, Changing the Narrative of Black Fathers, where we have 18 fathers who have shared their stories about being fathers. And we wanted to change the narrative of Black fathers because often Black men don't get the respect that they're due. We often hear people bashing Black men in their role as fathers and absentee fathers, or, not handling their business. And that's not the case with all fathers. And so that is a really amazing book as well. And that's it.
Would you like to read an excerpt?
I did not prepare to read an excerpt because all of those books are amazing, and I wouldn't know which one to read from. But they are amazing books.
Okay, I'll let that one slide.
Okay.
Okay, so I have a question for you, and I just lost where I was going to start at. My first question is, how are you reaching new readers during COVID?
Is that question for everybody?
Yes, and we'll go in the order that we presented first.
Okay.
Okay, so this is Jahzara. I'm always looking for ways to reach new readers through social media. I have a couple books out, and so like in Love of My Life, the main characters in that book are Gia, Infinity, and Taboo, and so they have their own Facebook page, and you get glimpses into their life, and they each run their own page. So doing things like that. I also make aromatherapy products such as candles and body scrubs. So some of my characters have their own signature fragrances, and people like those. And just always looking to stay relevant with what's going on, just in the present day, in the present moment. and tying in concepts from the book with present day life. So that's kind of how I try to find new readers and reach out to people.
Okay, this is Victoria. For me, I stay connected and reach out to readers mostly through social media and through groups of other writers and writers who have their own pages where they interact with their readers. So, for example, I've been invited to be like author of the week on a page, and where I will engage with the readers on a page of someone else, and that way they're introduced to me. And I do giveaways and give away copies of books. I also have my writers group, as I said before, and I interact with a lot of writers that way, and interacting with them introduces me to other platforms to engage that I wouldn't have done on my own. One of those being like being invited to participate in the anthologies, and then the talks that go along with them. And also I work on short stories, and I submit short stories to literary magazines. And so that's a way to post those stories on my page. And if someone has not read a book of mine, I will introduce myself to them with the short story, like send them the link, like here's a piece that was published in Midnight and Indigo. So usually before COVID, it would have been my reading series that have monthly in person. But in the absence of that, social media and virtual talks all the way.
Okay, this is Tyreese. Because I have a children's book, I've been marketing it to teachers of grammar school or elementary school children. Because violence is a big issue in the district, making sure that I am targeting schools where the violence is very high. I did a campaign where on my daughter's, what would have been her 23rd birthday last June, I asked 100 people to give $23 to donate a book to a kid who wouldn't be able to afford the book. And so we were able to give giveaways, and we gave the book away. We made a big public scene about it. So we gave it to some rec centers and some children who actually had experienced loss. And that gave us an opportunity to continue to be on social media, giving the book away, getting excitement. And so even though we asked for only 100 people, and that 100 was representative of the number of people who die from gun violence in the U.S. every day, we were able to collect enough to give over 300 books away. And so we might give one community center 5 books, then we have an opportunity to blow that up on social media, and we might give it to a family, and then we could talk about that on social media. So just different opportunities to give the book away, and then talk about it on social media. Getting it into the schools was really good. In Texas, there was one teacher who bought 100, I think she might have been a guidance counselor, bought 100 books to give away to kids at her school. So just marketing the book to schools, and then having opportunities to demonstrate what the book can do, and have people give a video testimony of what they thought of the book.
That's awesome.
That was a great campaign.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm in Baltimore, so I can relate to the gun violence, Tyreese.
Yeah, it is awful. I mean, and it's awful throughout the United States. It's not even just in the States. But it is awful. But hopefully we can do something about it, because for the first time in history, the federal government is actually putting money into gun violence. So I also do a lot of gun information. My husband and I, we started a foundation for in our daughter's name to address gun violence. So we also use that medium as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, I definitely suggest you use your daughter's birthday anniversary as a way to do that again, because that's an excellent way to give back to the community and share valuable information. So that was excellent tips, you guys. Y'all out here being these social butterflies. I love it. I love it so much. What do you wish you had known when you wrote your first book?
That's a good question.
What do you wish you had known when you wrote your first book?
Oh, my goodness. I wrote my first book in 2003, and I went through a publisher, and it was to be honest, a ripoff. And so I kind of wish I had known, I wish I had known that I could have done self-publishing back then, that I could have done it myself. I wish I had known that, but after going through the process and seeing how they did my book and what it was that I wanted my book to look like, I became I became determined to learn how the book publishing process works and to do it myself. And so I'm glad I had the opportunity to learn how to publish books and do it my way and on my terms. And so that's what I do now every time I publish a book.
Mm-hmm. Okay, is it my turn now?
I'm getting some background. I'm just trying to see whose background is it. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Victoria.
Okay. For me, the thing I wish I had known, even though I was published by an independent publisher, I didn't realize how much I had to put in marketing. And if I had known how much of marketing depended on what I had done, I think the book would have been more successful in terms of the number of readers, how many people it reached, and the kind of, not really the feedback, because I connected with really good people who had helpful tips, and I made some lifelong friends through publishing, getting my first book published. But I wish I had known that I needed to be more hands-on with marketing.
I think that's the biggest issue that a lot of authors have, because they think that because they're with a publisher, that the publisher is going to do a lot more marketing.
Exactly. That was a misconception for me.
Yeah. With the big publisher, what I tell my clients is to ask questions, because some publishers do some marketing and some don't. I know a lot of people who work with small presses, they just publish the book. And
right.
You don't know, and if you don't know anything about promotion, you're like, oh.
Yeah.
So that's where I come in, trying to help people, because I know that a lot of people, I have a friend that she just insisted that if she was with a publisher, they would publish, they're going to promote her. And I'm like, no, unless it's in your contract. If it's not written down, do not believe it. Do not believe it, and so you have to ask a lot of questions, and a lot of authors don't. They're just so excited that they have a book. I've had people who had books, and they didn't know anything about author copies. They were paying regular price for their book.
Yeah, because they were never told any different.
Yeah.
They were never told any differently.
And you're not going to, and here's the thing, they're not going to tell you. They're going to get the money.
Right, exactly. So they were never told any different.
You have to ask the questions. Hold on, I've got Tyreese locked down. I'm sorry. You had some background noise. But, there's so much that you have to know. And a lot of authors, I don't even think anybody offers that. What happens when the book, it's time to promote the book? I might have to have a book camp or something, because there's so many people that they're so excited they release the book. And then they're like, I'm going to hit the bestseller list. And I'm like, how are you going to do this?
Yeah.
And you think, well, I had a client who thought just because her book was on Amazon was going to help her. And I'm like, No. And one of my clients told me, I don't know what questions to ask. And that's true, because you know, if you don't have writer friends per se to ask those questions to, you're new to this. You know, you go and you go like Jahzara. Yeah, Zara said she went to a company, and you know, you thinking they're trustworthy people, and then you find out after you spent $10,000 that
right, exactly.
You know, so that is really hard, and that has been my mission, is to educate authors on the promotion side, because we think we know how to write. We can learn how to write. But what they fail to realize is you also can learn how to promote. It's not something that comes naturally. Maybe you know how to sell stuff, but selling and promoting are two different things. You know, and you got to reach that audience before you can do anything else. You know, and you're like, oh, great book, but nobody knows about it. You know, and if you're one of those people who don't want to go out into the public, you're going to have a hard time, you know.
Is there where's the distortion coming from? There's some background noise?
It's Miss Tyreese. You had some background noise. I'm going to mute you. Sorry. Yeah, that's her. I don't know if that's her phone or she's moving around. My next question is, what was the most difficult part for you for writing your book?
Yeah, we're still answering in the order we were introduced, right? Yeah.
Okay. So this is Jahzara. I would say the most difficult part for writing my book, well, not this last book, not the last couple books. I've written 8 books, but the first few books was I just would sit down and just let things flow out. And I love to write, and so I write in the academic vein. I'm also a high school science teacher, so I know how to write that way. But when I was writing my novels and for fun, I wouldn't use an outline. And so I hired a literary mentor, and she said, girl, you better get an outline. And so once I got an outline and I started doing character mapping and everything, that made my life so much easier. But I think I just kind of wanted to use outlines and things like that more so for academic writing and that type of thing. But the outline is, oh, my goodness, I will never write another book without an outline. That just made my life so much easier. And it freed up a lot of time, as opposed to just sitting there and just, oh, well, whatever come, I'm going to let it come. And I spent a lot of time scrapping stuff at the end because, oh, this is a good point, but this doesn't really go with this book. The outline kept me on point and saved me so much time and focus. So I love a great outline.
That's good. Outlines are very helpful. I have to apologize to Miss Tyreese. You didn't get a chance to answer your stuff. We had the background noises, and I muted you, and then you didn't unmute yourself. So you have to hit *6 to unmute yourself. And we would love to know, what do you wish you had known when you wrote your first book? So let's answer that question, then we'll move on to Miss Kenny. Can you unmute yourself? Or do I have to unmute? I'll unmute. There you go. Are you still there? Hello?
Okay, it wouldn't let me at first. So the hardest part for me is because mine is not a fiction. It's not fiction. It was my real life. And so it was very hard to write. It was very emotional because the loss of my daughter was a traumatic experience for me. But it motivated me in the same vein because I knew other people would be traumatized, and this would be a way for them to be able to start talking about it and expressing themselves. As a therapist, I knew that. And so even when I wrote in the first book, and I was a part of an anthology, it just tugged at my heart. So it was difficult to write in that aspect.
Okay, so you had the other question. I didn't get you to give you a chance to answer. What do you wish you had known when you wrote your first book?
That COVID was going to be in my way and not allow me to do book signings and things like that. And so even for my co-authors, you know, we thought we were coming out of COVID and that, you know, by the time the book was published, we were writing during COVID. And so by the time the book was published, we would be out of COVID, and we were not. And so we had to do virtual events, which still were nice. The thing about a virtual launch of a book is that it allows people in other places to attend, but you still don't get the same crowd and the level of excitement as if you can have an in-person event.
Yeah, COVID shut down a lot of people, you know, events and stuff. But I love the way people pivoted and came up with other creative ways to do things. So that was good. My next question is, what was the highlight of seeing your book published?
Can you repeat
the highlight?
What was the highlight of seeing your book published?
For me, it was seeing my name on a book. Like, that was just amazing for me to be able to, you know, to share my story, to leave a legacy for my daughter and my grandson and my godchildren. That was very exciting for me.
I think for me it was getting that first shipment of books and opening it and seeing all those books that were from me with my name on the cover, with the image that I helped scout. I search out for the image to go on the book cover, and having that first copy go to my mom. That way, and with her no longer being here, that was like very important for me because she was so supportive of me as a writer. And so, yeah, getting that big shipment of books and signing that first copy for my mom, that was definitely a highlight.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
The highlight for me with every...
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. The highlight for me with every book is, because I call them my babies, each one is, you know, different. Just being able to pick them up, hold them, and it's nothing like being able to just run your hands over the pages of a book. I don't know what that is, but that just, it brings, like, joy to me. And as the other authors have said, I don't care, like, how many books I write, but every time just seeing my name on that cover, Jahzara, I don't know,
yes.
It's just like, yeah, that's me. I did it.
Yeah.
You know what else I do? I have postcards made up of the book covers of any books I do, and I put them where I can see them. Like in my office, I'll pin them to a board where I see an image of all the book covers. And so I have postcards made up of all the book covers, and I display them where I can see them when I'm in my office sitting at my desk.
Oh, I love that idea. That's motivation. I did this. What about you, Tyreese? You already said yours, didn't you? So, okay.
I did.
You did. What is the biggest surprise you experienced after becoming a published author?
Are we going in the same order?
Yes, go ahead.
One of the biggest surprises was with my first book, Love Don't Live Here Anymore. I had a lady to read the book, and I met her at the beauty salon. And the next time I came back for my hair appointment, she was there for her hair appointment. And one of the biggest surprises was when she saw me, she said, I had been living with this man for 7 years. I wanted to get married. He told me he didn't want to get married, and I thought I could change him and convince him to get married. But after reading your book, I said I didn't want to stay in that, and I left him. And that was a big surprise. I mean, that was one of the things, other books, you got to do what's best for you and move on and not settle. And for her to take that theme from the book and move on, it was a huge surprise for me.
Wow.
Confirmation that you're doing the right thing. That was wonderful. You want them to get something from it, but wow.
Now it's like, oh.
That's moving right there. Well, I had two surprises with mine. Number one was the joy while I'm at my 9 to 5 and looking up and seeing people who work in my building standing at my desk with their copy of the book in their hand, either with their mouth hanging open or asking me to please sign it or take a picture with them while they're holding my book. And I'm like, what? Like, it's still me. Like, this is me. That was one surprise. And the other was how passionately people chose sides of the characters in the book, so that anytime I did a book discussion, you had people who were clearly team this person or team that person because of a triangle, and people really being upset over like other people's choices. It was like a real roller coaster. So yeah, that was a surprise.
And for me, the biggest surprise, I was invited to be a therapist on the Cartel Crew, which is a VH1 reality TV show. One of the characters, or I guess she's not a character, it's supposed to be real, she lost her sister to gun violence, so they did a huge piece that entire season. And I was invited to, they actually came here to Washington, D.C., and we were able to meet, and I got quite a bit of television coverage from that. And so that was probably the biggest surprise. And then also based on my books, I also won, I don't know if you would say won, but recognized as Mental Health Advocate of the Year by Glambitious Magazine. So that was really a very good and interesting surprise.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Here for your book. That's wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you.
You see all those blessings coming out of that tragedy? Oh, my goodness.
Mm.
I know writing can be very emotionally draining and stressful sometimes. What advice would you offer an aspiring writer to get through it?
If they come across moments that are stressful, like in one of my books, I wrote about Nairi finding out about the passing of her father. And it was really emotional because it took me back to the place when I remembered the passing of my father. And so one of the things that I just learned to do was own my emotions and deal with it. And if things become too much, it's okay sometimes to just say, hey, I need to put this down and step away from it for a moment. But, come back certainly and deal with it.
Anybody else?
I would say this is for new authors or aspiring authors. Just to establish a practice, a writing practice is very important to me as a writer. I have to be consistent with writing because I know that if I stop, sometimes it takes me a long time to get back on track. So I try to be very regular in a writing practice. I don't have to sit down for hours, but for me personally, my writing is daily. I have to do something every day, even if it's just a couple of paragraphs or revise something. I have to do something with my writing every day. So whatever works for them and they know they can manage, even if it's on Sunday afternoons, from 12 to 4, that they're going to write, just be regular and be consistent in your practice and don't wait until you just feel like it. Just obey the practice, and then whatever you don't want to keep, it doesn't have to stay, but it's the discipline.
Yes, that's really good advice. I needed that 2 years ago. Not very disciplined, so that's really good advice. Did you answer, Tyreese?
Can you repeat the question for me?
Yes.
I couldn't hear.
I said writing can be an emotional, draining, and stressful pursuit. Any tips for inspiring writers to get through it?
Well, of course, as a therapist, I'm going to recommend therapy, right? I think that I did a Clubhouse event the other day about writing and therapy and how it can be so therapeutic. You dig deep and you're finding out stuff that you didn't even know was in there, because oftentimes when things are unpleasant, we kind of just brush it off. But if you're writing about some stuff that kind of hits home, just to be in therapy about it, to really help you dig deep and get to the heart of the matter. And it can also be healing for you when you even look at like a journal, for example. When people give you journal prompts, it really encourages people to dig deep. So I'm definitely a proponent of, dealing with this stuff, and writing is a way to do it.
I'm just realizing I missed the whole emotional component of that question. I missed the whole emotional component of that question. And if I may, I would like to add that, of course, what both of these ladies said, but when it comes to the writing, and especially like with me, it's fiction, and you create these characters, it's almost like a movie in your head that you got to get down on the page. And when the emotions come up, whether it's laughing, if somebody was watching me write and I didn't know they were watching me, they might see me laugh, they might see me wipe a tear, they might see anything, because you have to just stay true to the characters. And so that's what I would advise them to do, to just stay true with the characters and ride whatever emotions come up with each one of those characters, with the scenes, more importantly.
Yeah, that was a good tip. Thank you for coming back and saying more. What does being a successful author look like to you?
You know what? I think it depends on each book that I have. So my ideas and my goals for one book may not be the same as another. But I really think for me, when people read something and they say, oh, you know what, I was really moved by this, or when people are able to make connections or they recommend my book to somebody else, that's success for me.
Like that. I think that as a writer, you need to know what is success to you, not to other people, because other people will drive you crazy and push you off the road. So you know exactly what success means to you. That's why I like to ask that question, because sometimes people don't think about it. And they're like, oh, I was thinking being a New York bestseller. Yeah, but I met New York bestsellers that told me I'm still washing my own clothes, so I'm not too successful. She thought somebody else supposed to be washing her clothes when she's a New York bestseller. So you definitely have to know what it means to you.
You know, for me, finishing the book, even if you don't publish it, because, we talk about all the time, I've heard so many people say, oh, I want to write this book, and they never even begin writing it, or they never finish writing it. And so just being able to finish writing it is a big deal to me. And if you do more with it, get it published, get it sold, of course, those are all great. And it's sort of like the first success is getting it done, because there's so many people who won't even do that. And we all have stories in this, and I believe our life is not our own. Even if you're writing fiction, right, like these things are born from something or somewhere deep inside, or there's stories that need to be told, that somebody's going to be helped because you told the story. And so I think just getting the story written is a big deal.
That is
I would agree with that. Getting it written is the first huge milestone, because with my first novel, it actually took me 4 years to write it, and it's not because I needed that much time. It was because of the purpose. It was the purpose it served in my life. I'm a really bad insomniac, and so at night when I couldn't sleep, I would go into the spare bedroom at the computer and just write. And the story started taking shape. So the first story was definitely I pants through that story. It wasn't plotted. But it was therapy for me just in the writing because it gave me something to look forward to at night. When the house was quiet and everybody else was asleep, I would escape into the world of that story. And so I didn't have a deadline. I didn't have anyone to hand it into, or it had to be done by a certain time. It was just my nighttime thing. And so when I finished writing it, I just shelved the manuscript. I printed it out because it was like from 2000 to 2004. I printed it out and put it in a box and put it on the shelf for years. The book did not come out until 2017. Y'all get that, right? I finished writing it in 2004. The book did not come out until 2017 because I sat on it, and it was just on to the next thing. And I would dabble a little bit with some writing, but that story always stuck with me. And then when I had an opportunity to submit my work to an anthology with Brown Girls, and they accepted my short story, and then they asked for, like, if any of the writers in their anthologies had any manuscripts they wanted to submit or whatever, and I was like, oh, man, but by that time I had finished writing the second novel, but they went with the older one, and I had to update all the pop culture references, all that stuff. I wrote that when The Wire was on TV, okay? So, yeah, it was just, finishing it is the biggest success.
Thank you so much for sharing that, because I have been holding on to my book forever. So I'm glad to hear somebody else did too.
Yeah, just finish it first. Before you can do anything else with it, you have to finish it.
You have to finish it. It's finished. I'm just in the revision part. So that's
we can't even query an agent if you want to go that route unless you have a finished manuscript.
Exactly. I can't put it to nobody because it's not finished. It's not finished. So
exactly.
Excellent tips, lady. Thank you so much. What's your favorite social media platform and why?
I think my favorite social media platform is Facebook. Probably because I've been using it the longest. So I have my Facebook connected with Instagram, and one of my pages is connected with Twitter. But I just think Facebook, just because I've been using it for so long, and just the ease. Now my kids, they're on other things, so when I need something to go to those other platforms, I'll have them do that for me. Because they're like, Mom, give me your phone. Just give it here.
I'm going to have to agree with that. It's just the one I know how to use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'll go right along with you all because Facebook it's the most comfortable because it's the most familiar. I'm more familiar with it, and for some reason it seems a little more personable than the other platforms. I know people who stay on Twitter all the time. That's my least favorite. I really can't get with Twitter, even though I've had it just as long as Facebook, but I'll be honest, I started Twitter because of Maxwell. I wanted to follow Maxwell on Twitter. But Instagram would be the next one because it's just sharing pictures and commenting on them.
A lot of people have a love-hate relationship with Twitter. Twitter was probably my first social media thing I went on. I remember being on there and getting in trouble with my mother because I was at an event and it was boring, and I'm pulling my phone out, and she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm on Twitter." And she was like, "If you don't put that phone up," and I'm like, "Mama, I'm grown. I can do what I want to do."
Yeah.
Put the phone up.
Yeah, Twitter is the one I use the least.
Oh wow. I think when I was on Twitter, it was you had to be there. And I think that a lot of stuff has taken us away from being there like we used to be on our phones. And so a lot of people, I post stuff, and sometimes I'll come back and I get crickets, and then sometimes I'll get some comments, and I'm like, when I used to be on here, I was talking to all kind of people, and then I realized that I'm not on here talking to people. So when I come on there, they're like, oh, there goes LaShaunda. She don't talk to nobody anyway. So that's how I feel anyway. But I don't know what they, when they see stuff. But Facebook is like that. You can post something and come back. Twitter isn't like that. Twitter is definitely instant. And, something is happening in the world, people are talking about it right then and there. Some
That's
news
true.
happened, Bob Saget died, and I couldn't find anything. I went on Twitter. Everybody and their mom talking about it on Twitter. Facebook was a little slow to the post,
Yeah.
So, it's instant. So if you want instant news, Twitter is a account to be on. But if you just want, like for me, I was working, so I post my stuff on Facebook. Then I could come back at lunchtime and read posts. You can't do that on Twitter. It's gone. They be like, you said that 3 days ago, girl, gone.
my son told me Facebook is for old people.
my kids say that too. My daughter is on there, but I think she came back to it, and she's 24. She came back.
A lot of people who leave come back.
Yeah, she came back to it, and so she's on there a lot more than she used to be. She used to be on Snapchat, and I could not get into Snapchat at all. And this whole thing about each platform is you got to know each platform. What is the background of it? Snapchat was all about taking pictures and images, and I wasn't into that. I wasn't taking selfies. I barely knew how to take a picture of myself with my phone, so I never got on that. And with Facebook,
no, so let me ask you this, LaShaunda.
Mm-hmm.
As a promoter, which social media platform do you think is the most effective?
Ooh, that is an excellent question. Oh. I'm thinking. I would say it's a combination because it's about getting in front of as many people as you can. I'm not going to say Facebook because then you just focus on Facebook. Well, I tell my clients you need 3 platforms. And the reason I say you need 3 platforms is because if you're promoting on Facebook and you sold your books to your followers, you have nobody else to talk to. So when you go on Instagram, there's a whole new group of people you can sell books to. And you go on Twitter, there's a whole new group of people. If you're on LinkedIn, there's a whole new group of people. Always trying to rotate these people because they already have your book, and they're like, I'm so tired of LaShaunda. She's come on her stupid book. Can't you come find something else? And they're like me, only had 1 book. Now you got multiple books, you can rotate it, and then they see different things because somebody didn't get the book. There's always somebody who didn't get the book. My sister just went and bought my book. She's on Amazon, and I guess Amazon popped my books up in front of her, and she's like, I didn't know you was on Amazon. I'm like, are you serious? I'm over here cracking up because I'm like, is this my sister? I'm the promotion queen, and you're telling me you didn't know my books was on Amazon? But my sister is not my audience. So when I was promoting my book, when I promote my book, it goes over her head because she's like, oh. Right. But now she's a business owner. She needs to learn how to promote online. It's in her face now. And she's like, I got both of your books. And I was laughing at her. And she's like, why are you laughing? I said, because you got one of them already. I autographed it. Oh. But it was a great lesson for me to know that just because people are following you doesn't mean they need your book right then and there when you promote it.
True.
So you always got rotated to let them know. If you got people, if you got 200 people and all 200 bought the book, then you need to go find someplace else to promote. But if only 50 people bought, then you can continue to rotate that to get them to maybe say, oh, I need this book right now. Because the thing about reading is we get the book when we want it. You know, I read The Shack. I didn't read The Shack until after my mom died, and that book had been out 10 years. I actually had a copy on my shelf. But I had heard so many stuff that it was really deep, and you had to be ready for it. And I was not ready for it. I hadn't experienced a deep grief. When I read that book, I could understand every word that man said because I had experienced my mother's death, and I understood. Wow. But I had that book on my shelf for 10 years. You know, I think you have to be ready for books. You know, I tell the stories of Outlander all the time because I knew about the Outlander because I'm a romance writer, and I read romances. But I had stopped reading Highlander books, I had went on to the Black romance, and so I left the little Highlanders alone. So I didn't get into Outlander until the series came on, and then I wanted to know what happened to the characters. I'm the only person that probably does that, but I went and bought the books. I'm like, I want to know what happened. And so people are like, that book's been out 25 years. You just got it on the books. I'm like, yeah, but I was ready for them. 25 years ago, I was into Black romance. I wasn't into Outlander, you know.
Right.
So you have to remember that when you're dealing with readers, when are they ready to get your book? Because they might not be ready. You know, I have a book on grief, and people are like, well, how do you promote that? I said, I just talk about it, but I don't push it because people have to be ready when they're dealing with grief. You can tell them, hey, I got a grief book. And they're like, if you don't get out of my face, do I look like I want to read a book about grief? And then later they'll come back and say, LaShaunda, what was that book you had? Can I get a copy of that? You know, and so, you know, I've had 3 or 4 people contact me and say, can I get those books? I want to send them to my friends. You know, and so you have to be prepared. You have to know when your book is ready for your audience. And a lot of people don't think about that. They just like, I'm trying to sell this book. Ain't nobody buying my book. Well, are they ready for that book? Is that something they read? Just because they're following you does not mean they read your book. They're just following.
That's true.
And so that's the biggest issue. If you're going to be on one platform, you got to make sure that who's following you is your audience, because if not, you're promoting to the wind. You're getting crickets, and you're like, oh, ain't nobody buying. I had a caller, she said, ain't nobody buying my book, LaShaunda. I said, ask questions. And she started asking questions. And some people weren't even book readers. You know? She's like, they don't even read books. They was like, what is an e-book? I was like, ooh, yeah. You got to start finding new people. And you can, I tell people all the time, if you're going to stay on one platform, then you need to be introducing yourself to new people. How do you do that? You go on groups, you go in pages, you go on other people's pages. You are always try to meet 5 people every day. Talk to 5 people every day that are not your regular followers, and that's how you grow your readership. When you're just talking to your cousin, your mama, your best friend, the way that they work with you, they already got your book. They don't need it. They bought it, you know. So you were like, I'm stuck.
I found out in a clubhouse session one time. This was a few months ago, and there were authors in the room. It was a talk on writing, on promoting, on budget promoting or something like that. And there was a woman who was invited to the stage to talk, and she had brought a book out 20 years ago, and she still promotes her book. She said it never stopped. I never thought of it that way. She's like, you never stop promoting your book. Like, what if by chance you never get to bring out another book? Like, you never. So do you let those words just die? Like, there's always someone who could benefit from what you've written. And so she always has at least a copy of it when she leaves her house.
I tell my clients that put them in your car seat or put them in your purse. Take them with you. Every time I don't have a book, and my book is about book promotion, but when people say, you a writer, you got any books? They don't care. They just excited that they know a writer, you know. And
that's
I'm like,
true.
Hey,
I see. I think that's true sometimes, too.
I went on the cruise, and I wasn't taking no books with me. Do you know how many people asked me for my book? I was like, oh, Lord. Why you ain't bring no books with you? Do you know how much stuff you got to love to get to the cruise? Hey, I'm not trying to love no books. But I passed out on the luggage that I took. So, you know, but it showed me that, hey, just because I didn't want to bring books does not mean that the people there didn't want to read my book.
Yeah,
so I just told them where to go to get the book. But there is always somebody who has not read your book. My book will be out 7 years. And there's, as you see, my sister did not get the book 7 years ago when I had a book signing. She didn't come. So I told her, I said, you didn't come to my book signing, so that's how you missed it. She had to work, so. But that's how she didn't get a copy. And so, you know, there's always somebody who misses it. And that's what you think about every day. Who needs this book today? That's your question every day. Who needs this book today? And you putting it out there. So I recommend, if you are only on Facebook, to try another platform. I highly recommend Clubhouse because it's totally different from all the other platforms. You're actually talking to people. And people get to know you when you're talking to them. Like we're having this conversation, we've learned a little bit about each other. You can't learn that much in Facebook. You can talk some little stuff, but people still leave out a little bit left out.
Yeah,
you know, 'cause there's only so much you can type.
True.
You can only type. But when you get in these clubhouse rooms, man, I have conversations about it. Today we talked about my military time. What is that about? But
I haven't been on there in so long. I'd have to. I don't know. I was getting notifications, but I don't think notifications are coming up on my phone.
Yeah, you probably turned them off. But I definitely.
I don't remember doing it.
At least do one room a day, if nothing else. One room a day. If you want to come into my room, it's the Purple Table room. Take a break.
I think I follow your room, but I think the main thing I need to do is probably update the app. That might be why I'm not getting notifications.
Yeah, you probably said, "Oh man, there's been some changes in her." Now, what I recommend is visit one room a day and then check a replay. You can listen to replay.
Oh, so you can do replay now?
They do replays now. It's fantastic. So if you have a subject that you want to learn, go in there and find those rooms that are hosting it and get their replays, and you can listen to that. I use the Shopify. I'm learning Shopify, so I done downloaded all these replays about Shopify because I'm finna master Shopify.
Okay, so that's a new feature though, right?
Yes, they just started that at the end of the year. Yep.
Oh, okay, good. Thanks for letting me know that. I will.
Yeah, it has become one of my favorite tools, and it's great if you want to be a speaker because you get to practice. So it's definitely
that's true. But you know, one of the main things that stopped me from going on there as much because every time I would show up in a room, I would always get invited to talk, and so I would always want to be polite and not say no, I don't want to.
Well, that's a choice. You just put. Most of the time, I'm at work, so I can't talk too much. If I'm at work,
right? Exactly. And so that would make me like leave quietly.
Yeah, you don't have to leave quietly. You just when they invite you up, you push the little button that says you can't speak right now, and then boom.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You don't have to go up to. That was one of the things I learned. I thought that I had to just go up there. They invite me. They want me to talk, and then I realized, no, I don't have to go if I don't want to. And sometimes
you let me know options I didn't know I had. So that's good.
You have options for anything that you do. Your boundaries. Hey, I don't feel comfortable because sometimes people just want to get all your information for free. And that's what I found out. They want to get the promotion information for free, instead of setting up a time and talking to me. No, you want to get the free stuff. So, no.
That's true.
Yeah, if I'm going to get free, it's going to be in my room. Come on over to my room. I can get free. Yep. Learn that boundaries. I learned that the hard way, but boundaries are very good for you. Ladies, I have really enjoyed talking to you today. Can you tell us how we can reach you online or offline? And we will start with, we're completely blank. Jahzara, please.
Okay. I am Jahzara Bradley on Facebook. I am at Ms. MZ Jahzara on Twitter. I think I'm Literary Jahzara on Instagram. And then I also have a website, which is www.tranquilbliss.net.
Great. I'm glad you got a website. So many people click on the website.
My poor website. I do have a website, but it needs serious updating. But you can reach me on Facebook as Victoria Adams Kennedy. The same on Instagram, Victoria Adams Kennedy. My writers group has a page on Instagram. It's Zora's Den. And my website is victoriaadamskennedy.com.
Thank you.
And I am at, you can look at my website is www.tyresemcallister.org, and that's TYREESEMCALLISTER. And I am on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn under the same name, Tyreese Mcallister.
Okay, cool.
I hope what our guest shared today was helpful for you. I want to thank our sponsor, Building Your Readership by LaShaunda Hoffman. Check the show notes for the link to purchase. I want to thank you, our listeners, for taking time to listen to the podcast. I have 3 questions for you. 1, did you learn something from this episode? If you did, please share the podcast with your community. Number 2, would you like to be a guest for an episode? Contact me at onestarmeg@gmail.com. One last question. Have you promoted your book or business today? If you haven't, go showcase those wings. Someone needs what you have to offer. This is LaShaunda Hoffman, and I will see you on the next.